Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ryan from Resume to Offer. Hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. We got New Year's coming at you in just a few days. So I feel like it's been a while since I made an update video. It was snowing on our Christmas, which was pretty phenomenal. And my wife made an awesome whole chicken, which was really cool. It's just me, her, and our daughter, which was really, really fun. And then we saw some friends the night before. We went out for Christmas Eve. We went over to their place, which was really cool. But today, I thought I would give you a little bit of some information on the best times to cold call. This has come up in a few different conversations. We've had a few different one-on-ones in the last week where people were asking this kind of question, like, hey, what's the best way that I'm trying to structure my outbound? I'm trying to cold call the hiring manager, the recruiter, the account executive. When's the best time? What's kind of like some recommendations I can do to optimize my approach? So, few things, we'll get right into it. You could definitely check out if you need some additional information. Check out the description below for some resources, free resumes, templates, different things like that, some different courses. Definitely check in the description. So, best time to cold call. So just like if you're going into sales, right? This thing about outbound job hunting, and you're cold calling the hiring manager and you're cold calling, you're kind of getting into the role before you're in the role. So it's really, really great practice, and you should treat it as such, where you're warming up, you're really getting into the groove, you're getting into the mindset of kind of being like this type of, an SDR or an account executive. Some of the things that you should consider is you always want to make sure you're in the customer, the lead, the prospect's mind, right? Be in their mindset. Many people have asked, like, should I cold call on the weekends? Well, it depends, right? I would let you know that since I'm a recruiter, if somebody cold called me on a Saturday, I don't think I'd be very excited about it. I wouldn't be like, oh, thank you so much, right? No, I'd be like, hey, this is my day off. Don't bother me. So you have to kind of consider the other person's perspective, right? I would say Saturdays do not hit them up. Friday afternoons, like after 2:00, do not hit them up. Sundays, maybe in the afternoon. Now, this is a hit and miss, and maybe you should test it out first. Do a split test with it. Sunday afternoons, it's a little bit more calmed down, especially for certain executives in the afternoon. They're beginning to kind of plan out the day for the next week. So maybe, but the key is you want to make sure that you're calling them when they're in the right receptive state. They're ready for it, or they're yeah, okay, I'm willing to take the cold call or spend 2 to 5 minutes to hear you out. So you got to make sure you're in their mindset. So don't be doing it on days off, especially right now, especially during Christmas and New Year's. People that ask me, should I cold call them? No, if you're watching this, it's currently kind of the holiday season. Right now, Q4, people are closing their books, they're with their families, they don't want to think about work. I would not recommend cold calling right now. The best time, actually, if I look at my calendar, is probably after the 7th or 8th of January. Now, why is that? Because that's the best time when they go back to work. They're setting up not just the week, but the month and the whole year. They're getting new allocation budgets on hey, what's our hiring needs? How much money do we have for salaries and everything? So after they know what they need, that's when you can cold call them. So that's the best time. So if you're watching this and you're currently wondering about that. But back to certain time slots. So the best time, as I try to minimize my calendar, because there we go. So the best time is when there's a lull in their schedule. It's when their guard is down. They're more receptive. So think about it from their perspective on the day goes on. So they get up. All of a sudden, within 30 minutes is when they get the most amount of emails. This is a tip when you're doing cold email approach, okay? You'll always notice that you get more emails in one segment of time than at any other point in the day, because campaigns, email campaigns, Aweber, MailChimp will analyze, hey, this is the best time to send out cold emails, okay? So if it's happening to you, that's the best time you can kind of think about, where you want to do cold emails usually in the morning. I would say between 7:30 to 9:30. It's probably the best amount of time. For cold calls, the best timing is probably 9:30 to 11:30, and about, I would say, maybe 1:30 to 3 p.m. Those are the two big windows. Now, why is that? Because they're going into the office, they're getting prepped for work. They get in there, they check their email, they are figuring out the to-dos for the entire day. They're analyzing and structuring their day. As soon as they're done with that, now they might have it, there's no like perfect one. They might have, different meetings and stuff, but majority right then is when, okay, they're more receptive. The guard comes down a little bit more. That's when you want to cold call, okay? If you think about it, 9:30 to 11:30 is the morning window. Then they have lunch. 1:30 to 3 is the second window. And then after 3 o'clock, it's kind of like they're a little bit more worn out. More people, you ever heard of like that, what is it called? The 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock coffee, or, I forget the word, but basically a lot of people like turn off their brains after 3 o'clock. They're planning for the next day. They have no energy. They definitely don't want to take a cold call. So you want to make sure you structure it a certain way. I would recommend 9:30 to 11:30 and 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Those are the windows you want to do cold calling. Ideally more in the morning. I would say the morning's your better one. You got to make sure you're also, when you're calling them, you're aware of their time zone. Not your own time. I'm not talking about 9:30 to 11:30, your time zone, their time zone. That's when you want to make sure that you're giving them the best hit. Tim Ferriss, he gives a famous example of when he was doing cold calling and he was working, he would call before working hours at whatever office he was trying to cold call. He would do that, and if he did that, he would get the CEO and not the gatekeepers. Okay, so he'd go around the entire system. So if you're calling a bigger company, it might be good to always do it a little bit more earlier. If you're calling a smaller company, it's a little bit easier because you can kind of figure out, who's who. Usually on like LinkedIn, you can figure out over there's 20 people on the staff. I know exactly who the CEO is, the hiring manager, the account executive, things like that. When you're going into companies that are like thousands of people, it's a little bit more tougher that way. I do recommend using different lead generation tools. ZoomInfo, Seamless, Hunter.io, Interstellar, Apollo.io. There's a bunch of different ones out there. And I use, my favorite's actually Seamless. I've used them for just sales in general and how I've gotten clients as a recruiter as well, where I find out the actual contact data of like the VP, CEO, other C-suite people, and I'm able to call their direct line and their cell phone directly, okay? So something you should consider there. What else can I tell you about best times to cold call? If you're doing an interview, one of the best ways is that you want multiple touch points in your journey, in the candidate journey and your interview journey with this company, okay? You want to make sure that you're not seeing them right at the interview, but you're leaving good impressions leading up to the interview, okay? So what you can do, what I would recommend, is if you have an interview scheduled, make sure that you send a LinkedIn request to whoever the interviewer is that morning. Send an interview request, add a note, say something that's very nice, excited to talk to you, looking forward to an interview. Ideally, you want to do this like a few hours before, okay? When you're also, if you ever get Calendlies and you are able to structure your own interviews, always make sure you do it in the morning, okay? Always make sure you do it in the morning. People are a lot more alert, especially recruiters, and I know if I have like 10 interviews that whole day, by the 10th interview, I'm like, oh God, not another one. So they might not be like that receptive to the person. It might be a little more biased. First interview or the second interview, maybe the second interview is a little bit better. They're a little bit more alert. They're a little bit more excited for the day, and it leaves a good impression if you do a great job. So sending a LinkedIn message with a note a few hours before you do the interview, you make sure that you are always a little bit more energetic than the interviewer, just slightly. If you have too much energy, they're going to think you're like, okay, this guy's a little bit weird. If you have lower energy, you're putting them to sleep. So you want to make sure you have like maybe 5 to 10% more energy than the other person, so you leave them feeling better and it gives a great impression, okay? After that, end of the day, you send a thank you email follow-up, okay? That's what you do. So there's 3 points of contact throughout the day during this interview. So I hope that helps. Just a few different tips there on when, and some other tips on kind of interview skills. Hope everyone is having a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Very excited for 2025. Shout out to Mac. Mac wants me to do more videos on Law of Attraction, so I might do that. But hope everyone's having a great holiday season, okay? Cheers.